You have got to be kidding me. What is that? All right, YouTube, I'm back on the grind. You know the deal. One more time. And in good spirits, man. I'm in as good spirits as I can be. Another problem with the car. So, after I got it back together and everything, we took it on a 90-minute one-way road trip out to my sister's family's house. Went out there, drove awesome, y'all. Drove awesome. And it seems a lot more smoother. Like the valve train is working a lot less, more efficient, and it just seems really, really smooth, man. And it drove great out there, great back. Then when I get home, I park it in the driveway for a moment, and I just wanted to open the hood to check just to see if I had any oil leaking in the back behind the intake, since that was a problem area for me. Everything checked out good. Came to the front of the car and noticed a puddle under the car. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Couldn't tell what it was right off the bat because it was a little bit dark outside. And then I come to find out that it's coolant. And I'm like, coolant? I just replaced the radiator. And, maybe it's a hose or something leaking something. I was hoping for something simple. Well, I could not see it leak anywhere at all where it was leaking from. However, I did notice that day, and even a couple times before, I seen coolant leaking from the cross member. Now, what I thought was, since I had to take the intake off, that basically unseals the passages for the coolant, and then you have runoff from the coolant, and then I thought it just went down. I thought it was just runoff. I thought it was just runoff that just went down the block and kind of settled on the cross member, and then there's holes in the cross member, so then coolant can get inside of there and whatever. So I initially thought that it might have just been excess coolant that was just collecting in the cross member and inside the cross member, and then when I moved the car, it would eventually kind of move and then just leak. And so that's what I thought, because I actually noticed that even before the drive. So come back home, and back to where the beginning of my story was, I saw it leaking in the same spot on the cross member, and I'm like, all right, something's weird here. So I'm thinking maybe freeze plug, something like that, whatnot. Then I get more into the inspection. I start looking around the water pump, and I saw a stream and a wetness right under the water pump, like right behind the pulley. And I'm like, oh man. So I can't really see up under there because it's so tight, but I'm thinking it's leaking out the weep hole. If you guys don't know what the weep hole is, it's basically a hole that's kind of like an indicator that your fuel pump's going out. Like, your fuel pump will still work. It actually might not leak while the car is running. However, when you stop and the water stops flowing, but the car is still under pressure and everything, it'll leak past, the seal and stuff inside of the water pump, and then leak out of the weep hole. And now that's how you know, like, your water pump is probably about to go out. Now, I can't see that it's leaking out the weep hole. I'm pretty sure that is where it's leaking. So looks like I'm replacing a water pump. Now, the good thing is, and hopefully, I can't remember the last time I took off the water pump or got to it, but it should be fairly simple to get to. I just got to take off the up pipe again, the MAF pipe, and then some of the hoses, and I should be able to access the bolts. Now, I did order a new water pump. I was gonna go just with a regular AC Delco brand. They're like 40 bucks. However, I've heard AC Delco now is not made in the US, and the parts that they offer, unless you get OEM parts, are not up to standard, let's just say, how they used to be. I heard all their stuff is now outsourced to China now. So I really wanted something that was well made, built somewhere local to the US, or at least have someone in the US, overseeing, something that I can get a good solid water pump from. So I heard a lot of good things about this one. It's called Kooler, I think. Kooler. And I think the casing is actually made in China, but the impeller and the internal guts of it all is made by a company in California. I don't know the whole ins and outs of it, but I know that this impeller here is billet, and the way that it's made, it's supposed to help the engine cool a lot faster, more efficient, and especially under idling temperatures. So as your car is just idling, let's just say you're stuck in traffic or whatever, then the water pump is supposed to help the flow of the water circulate through the engine, through the radiator and all that, and then help it cool a lot better. That's the word. I'm not sure, but I've heard good things about it. I went ahead and just spent a few extra dollars for it, got it, and I'm going to try to use that one. So, not the end of the world, y'all, but this is one reason why a lot of the times when you let cars sit for long periods of time, you start to get other issues. This has happened to me numerous times. I used to have a 74 Chevy Nova that I actually hardly ever drove, especially when it was actually my daily, let's back up. It was actually my daily in college. Drove that thing all the time. It had really low miles when I got it. It was like 36,000 miles. And then it kind of became just like a toy, like a project. And that's when I kind of started to get into cars, and I started to fix it up and this and that. And it was actually really nice. All the engine was chrome powder coated and everything. It was a 327. It was super nice. Then when I went off to college and stuff, I took it with me my first and second year, and then I just left it at home. I ended up getting another car, and it just sat in the garage, and I babied that thing for the next like 10 years. So, being that I hardly ever drove it that much because I was away a lot from college, and then after that I didn't move home for a while. When I come home, I would drive it, but then when I was home for any extended periods of time, it would have issues like, seal somewhere has gone bad, this has gone bad, alternator's going bad, just because the car has just been sitting. So these cars are made to be driven, y'all, and once you drive them, then that's when you don't have any issues with them, really. I mean, to be honest, but if you let them sit and then you start driving them a lot, then you're starting to have these issues, and I think that's where I'm coming into problems with this car. So hopefully, and I don't mean to ramble, y'all, but I just wanted to kind of talk a little history and, at least from my perspective and my history, what I've come across. Also, I ended up getting another turbo, because the smoking issue is still there. Now, if you guys have been following this build, then you know that I changed the valve seals. I did a compression test and all that. Everything checked out. I got new seals and all that. So I'm really trying to figure out where this smoking issue is coming from my exhaust. I typically don't get it on startups or anything. I can get it any time, at any point during when I'm driving the car, when the car is on, whatnot. Like when I came back from that 90-minute drive and I parked, when I saw the puddle of coolant, then when I went to move the car, started the car, and then a puff of smoke came out. So that leads me maybe to turbo. So a good friend of mine had an extra turbo. I'm supposed to run a set of injectors with it and a different chip because the turbo is a lot bigger than this one. So we shall see. I'm going to swap that at some point, see if we can get to the bottom of the smoking issue. So you guys stay tuned. All right, y'all, so I got it done, and I didn't film any of it because I really wanted to try to get this done before dark. Right now, the water pump is in, the new one, and it is kind of drying. Well, it is pretty much drying right now. I used this stuff right here, man. Really good stuff, the right stuff. RTV gasket maker. I don't technically know if they even call it RTV. I've just always known it as the right stuff gasket maker. But really good stuff. You can actually use it without a gasket if you wanted to, but I just layered one side with that right stuff, put the gasket and then on, and then the right stuff on the other side, and then just kind of snugged it down right now. I'm just kind of just letting it just tack up a little bit so I don't smush all of it out, and then I'll wait about another 5-10 minutes here, and then I'll tighten it down some more, probably wait a little bit longer again and then torque it down. That is drying right now, and then once that is dry, then it's just as simple as putting everything back together. Now, it was fairly easy, except, you know, one bolt has to give me a problem, and that took about 30 minutes, and it was just a pain in the butt. So that part at least was. Everything else was pretty simple. Now, getting it in and out of there with the intercooler still in there was a little bit of a challenge, but I was able to make it work. And now I know kind of how to get it in and out without taking the intercooler out. So that was a major plus, because it's a little bit of a process to get the intercooler out, and it's just awkward to handle. So I'm glad I was able to leave that in there. Now, to show you the old water pump, this is it right here. Now, what I was talking about, that weep hole, so there is the weep hole on the bottom. So this is the water pump, sits like this in the car. On the bottom, there's a weep hole right there, if you guys can kind of see it. Yeah, there it is. And that's kind of like your indicator. So if your water pump's ever going out, then it'll start leaking out of that weep hole. And that's exactly where I saw it leaking. I couldn't see the weep hole just because when you're looking from the side here, this way, you can't see that hole, but then you can see, you know, water kind of, or coolant dripping down, and then past the bottom of the water pump, you can kind of see it. So, and then I could kind of see it when I looked up here from the front. I couldn't see the hole, but I could see coolant dripping down there. So that's pretty much what it was. So it's probably dripping down and then down the front cover, and then probably carried under the engine and then dripped on the cross member, and then probably just settled there, and that's where the leaking was coming from. So I had no idea it was even coming from the water pump itself. But yeah, y'all, she in there, so it's just drying. I'm gonna let it dry overnight, and then I will be able to put it back together, run it, and then call it good for that. And then I can go ahead and attack the turbo and take that off as well too. So that'll be in a separate video. But so yeah, after this is back together, then I'll just address the turbo then. So I do have to put a turbo on, and then bigger injectors and the chip that goes with the turbo and the injectors. But it should handle pretty good on this setup, so I'm excited to see kind of what it would do. So anyways, I hope that fixes the issue, but again, that'll be another video another day. But yeah, y'all, that is it for today. I'm gonna call it a day. And yeah, water pump's in, so hopefully that works. It's supposed to be a lot better water pump, and I'm hoping that it does the job for me. But yeah, y'all, that is it. You guys know what to do, man. Go ahead, like this video, comment, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff, y'all. Stick with me. We are out of here. Deuces out.